All right, guys, here's a question for you. For our listeners, all three pastors love coffee. Mm-hmm. We really do. We really do. My love for coffee began, I still remember my grandfather would always put like hazelnut creamer in his coffee. Mm-hmm. So that smell always really takes me back, and I always wanted it from there. Anyway, I was going to ask you guys, when you go to a coffee shop, what is your standard order? Oh. What do you walk up to the barista and say, this is what I want?
Shucks.
This may come as a surprise to most, but there's nothing standard about me. I don't have standards. Wait, I have standards.
Wow.
I have standards.
There's our tweet.
It's always different. Mm. The other night we sat down at Laredo's and Christy ordered, and I leaned over to Claire and Kinley and I said, you're a mama. We've been eating Mexican together for probably 25 years. And she has ordered the same order every single time, no matter where we go. It is the same.
Consistent Christy.
And I said, Christy, could you even begin to try to guess what I would order at any place, anytime? She's like, no way. No way. It's always something different. So no, I don't have a standard, but I do have what I'm trying to get at. And do I ever attain it? No. Oh. So since I'm talking, I'll go ahead. I want something strong, mm-hmm. not too sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want something strong, not too sweet. So usually I'll try to go with like maybe a latte, and I'll ask for an extra shot. I usually get like a medium, extra shot, and then 2 less pumps of flavor that they usually do. Uh-huh. That's typical. I guess maybe that is my standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get coffee when I go to coffee shops. So that's not the go-to. It usually starts with, I try to identify what their number one drink is. Mm-hmm. So Kookaburra, if I've heard about it, or it mm-hmm. looks like of their signature drinks, the Honey Badger looks like money. Yep. So let's start there. And then I just did that at Lucky Goat in Tallahassee. Mm-hmm. Just kind of, so the first time I went, like they major in cold brew. So I went with a cold brew.
Okay. Was it good?
No, it wasn't my thing.
Okay.
So then I went back to what I usually start with. What's your signature drink? Mm-hmm. And got that with an extra shot. Yep. Boom. It was money. So that's usually what I'll do.
Yeah. We were in Ocala, and there was I searched for coffee, and there was a local place nearby. I'm going to do this instead of Starbucks. And they had 4 signature drinks, and I can't remember what they called it. It was kooky something, but it was coconut and caramel. And it was so good. We went the next morning because we were there overnight.
Yeah.
We went the next morning. I got the same thing. It was so good. 1 extra shot, 2 less pumps than normal.
So wait, Jason, you said you don't get coffee. Like you don't get drip
brewed coffee.
Yeah.
She gets an espresso drink.
Right. Yeah, just for all our purists out there, still coffee.
But you know this about me, and I could answer yours as well. But if they serve a cortado mm-hmm. at the coffee shop, that's going to happen inevitably.
And what is that?
That's just like a shot of espresso, 2 ounces, and
sugar.
No,
usually no,
not typically.
Oh, just kidding.
And steamed milk.
So it's equal parts espresso and milk. So
that sounds good.
It's a really small drink usually because espresso shot's about 200.
Right.
And I'll usually get a splash of vanilla or liquid sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I once ordered one from Doxa the way you got it. It's a kick. That's a great drink. But I always measure a coffee shop by their cappuccino, just to me, because it's such a particular drink with less milk that the way that you do it just to me says a lot about you as a coffee shop, how rich your espresso tastes, what you can do with a smaller amount of milk. So yeah, a good coffee shop has a great cappuccino.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try that. You know, the truth is, so I still have I have fat guy eyes. And so I see that small drink and I'm like, I need something more. But I need to be the skinny person I am and go with a small drink.
Well, to be fair, I think it's usually Jason's third order. But
true. That's on the ride home. That's his drink on the ride home.
Yeah.
His coffee flight of drinks.
Well, sometimes ordering coffee is not very easy, and sometimes relationships are not very easy.
Why are you looking at me, Jonathan? Literally,
So-
I made eye contact. First time in
Because
this
I
conversation.
wanted you to be impressed with this transition.
Stop being difficult, Stephen.
You really, it really brewed well.
Oh, man.
Blended.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow. Yep.
Let's percolate on that a little bit.
Okay. So I guess I should just
Let me
begin.
just give it another shot. Isn't there a button?
There is. I need to turn it up.
Not that button. Okay,
Oh.
just go.
I need to memorize this. All right. Welcome to the First Podcast, a podcast of First Baptist Church Lake Butler, where the pastors gather to encourage and equip our church to engage the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. All right, so we're here for another episode with Pastor Stephen, Pastor Jason, and myself, Pastor Jonathan. And part of that proclaiming the gospel, the good news of what God has done for us in Christ, plays out in the life of the local church. Really, everything about the life of the local church is organized around what God has done, what He's revealed, how He wants us to live. The church should be this lighthouse for God's truth, standing strong where people can see, okay, what does it look like if God grabs a hold of your life and starts changing you by His Spirit? But we all know that our experience is not all the time. Relationships are just smooth and everything is fine and nobody ever gets under our skin or on our nerves or whatever. What we wanted to talk about today is how to handle relationships within the church that are often difficult, or maybe opportunities that you have that maybe you have pushed away because you're like, I don't really have anything in common with them, or you know, I'm not sure how to relate to them.
I was teaching the discovery class this past Sunday morning, and a portion of the lesson was on peacemaking, our stance on biblical peacemaking. This is a kind of a hot topic right now in our body as our Sunday morning small group ministries are going through the peacemaker. And so I really just took an opportunity to expound on what you just said, and that in church life, what we typically find, the normal like flesh tendency is to, you're in a Sunday school class with someone, or you're in a D group with someone, you're in the choir, you work preschool with someone, and there's just a big difference between the two of you. They just on a different wavelength. You're just different, and typically what happens is we put up a wall and hold that person at arm's length. I passed out the book's diagram, The Slippery Slope of Peacemaking. And on that far left side is the withdrawal stances. And I said, typically, we know it's not Christ-like to attack. You know, we know we shouldn't, be aggressive and attack. So what we typically do is withdraw and just keep people at arm's length. Maybe we don't want to serve with that person on preschool rotation, or we don't want to be eye to eye in the church aisle. Like after church, we kind of avoid, they said something one time and we didn't like it. And so that's kind of our MO, because we aren't really equipped or maybe educated or convicted on how to handle difficult people, difficult things, people you find difficult biblically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the foundation that you guys set, that we are God's faithful witness, the church. We are the example of what true humanhood should be. We have been brought into relationship with Christ, who was the perfect human, who dealt with difficult people, dealt with sinful people in a perfect way. And it is our joy in God's glory to demonstrate to the world that this is how you love fellow sinners with different personalities and do things that may offend you. So yes, we're looking at this from, man, how can the church do this well? Because we're given opportunities all over the place to do it.
And you kind of answered maybe what I was about to ask is, why does it matter? Why should I be compelled to do anything past tolerating that person with a good attitude?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say a lot of the stuff that I have been learning about this is coming from a book called Love the Ones Who Drive You Crazy by Jamie Dunlop, which I have not finished the whole book, and I try not to recommend books before I finish them.
It's funny how Jonathan ordered that during our one of our recent conversations. He's like, "Hold on, Stephen, let me go ahead and order this book."
I'll get back to you. Let me order this book. And I've just, though, so far found it very, very helpful. So why does it matter? Let's begin here. What's the purpose of the church? Which is where he begins in the book. If the purpose of church is just to produce things, to get ministry done, then it doesn't really quite matter if you get along with somebody or whatever. Just go ahead with your own ministry or not really talk to them. But if the purpose of the church biblically is to resemble who God is, God's glory is on display. Like this is in the book of Ephesians. We are a group of people called out by his name, summarized, I think, in that Old Testament phrase, you are to be holy as I, the Lord, am holy. God is saving us and working in us to resemble who he is. The purpose of the church is for his glory to be known and spread and understood and cherished. So if that's the case, then I don't have an option to just shun somebody. I don't have an option to just say there's somebody in this group of people that God has reconciled to himself that I can just ignore, or in my heart be like, I don't really like them, or they're not the one for me. That is not God's plan for the church. We're to resemble who he is, and we know from Scripture that he is the God who reconciles, who brings parties together. Even if you think about who Jesus saved in his group of disciples, he saved Jewish zealots on top of Jewish traders. So we have Matthew, the Jewish trader, basically selling himself out to Rome, collecting taxes, doing all those things that Jewish people would have looked down, on. And then we have Simon the Zealot, who's this guy who was trained to try to lead uprisings against Rome. And here they are together in one group of disciples.
I don't know if I've ever thought of it like that.
And then in the church, we read all about these Jews and Gentiles. There's just a long history of Jewish people really trying to stay physically separate from the people groups around them. And then in the New Testament letters, we're being called to be together, to comfort one another, to have each other over in their houses, and to be one group of people, which is just amazing. So that's what God does. And I think that's the starting place for why it matters.
So God ordains the coming together of these differences.
Right.
And I think everyone could probably testify of a time where they wanted to be around people more like them in the church. They wanted to serve with someone more like them. They wanted to be in a group with people with fellow interests. And let me say, I don't think any of us are sitting here saying that that's sinful. But when it gets to the point of you're continually trying to look for your comfort zone, or when God ordains an opportunity to put the gospel on display.
Yeah.
But because what the world does is constantly just try to be with people they like.
Right.
Anybody can do that.
Yep.
But when Jesus says in the Gospel of John, by this shall they know that you are my disciples, because you have love for one another. Like masters love slaves in this community.
Yeah.
Zealots love traders in this community. Jews love Gentiles in this community. They don't separate. They don't keep their distance. They don't just commune with those who are like them. This is otherworldly.
Yeah.
And God ordains these relationships within the church for that purpose. So don't run from it.
And so in order to do this, the real motivation and power has to come from the gospel itself. So what I mean is, I don't think there's any hope for us to be really a unified people unless we are people who are deeply impacted ourselves by the gospel. When we understand that God's mercy has come to us, and that it's, as Jamie Dunlop said, he said it's a type of impossible mercy, that rebels who, hated God and he didn't want anything to do with Jesus or his lordship, we've been turned from that into children of God, those who are reconciled with God. The major thing that made us estranged, cast aside, not reconciled has been overcome. And that's why then, if that's true, and this is then happening to these other people who are gathered as God's church, then we need to live that out in the way that we have relationships with each other. So that's why he says that disunity, if we just kind of like don't get along and we're like this, I don't like that person, that type of attitude lies about who Jesus is and what he's done. It's basically saying Jesus's gospel is not good enough for us to be able to have a reconciled relationship.
Yeah, I think about it that when I look at my own life, God loves and fellowships with a difficult person every day in me.
Yeah.
And therefore, if the gospel has accomplished that in my life, then how much more should I do the same for others?
I know. It's funny how Byron is in the stage of, our son Byron is asking like why all of the time, even the things we've told him before.
Yeah.
And I've found that in my heart, I get most frustrated of his whys when I have explained it to him again and again. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like that's what God has told me his will again and again in his word. I have asked him like, why have you done this thing? Or, again and again. And yet God has this type of, he invites our concerns. His heart is not against us. He just has this constant, steadfast love that is transformative to think about the way that he loves us. And, I'm blown away.
Yeah. And if we're not armed with that, if it's not already, when you talk about putting on the armor of God, you don't want to wait until the situation to start trying to, where's the gospel at?
Right.
Now, like there has to be a gospel centeredness. There has to be a regular preaching of the gospel to yourself, specifically the application that we're talking about, in order to consistently love people well. And if God has ordained that you have a difficult person in your life, be it a spouse, a child, a coworker, an employer, embrace this as God's loving work in your life to cause you to be more desperate for the gospel, which is for your good and his glory. And I don't think we arm ourselves with that mindset as much as we should.
Yeah, our flesh is so quick to insulate against anything that opposes it. And so it's just a knee-jerk reaction, even in our mind, sitting in a BFG, sitting in a group environment, and someone acts in a certain way or says something, and we just immediately put those walls up to insulate our own selves.
Right.
And the gospel's compelling us. So what does it look like to love difficult people well? How do I quantify that?
I think one easy practical step is talk to people on Sunday who are outside your friend groups. So try to do what you can to branch out to people that you might not naturally gravitate towards. That's just a way of kind of opening the door to relationships that I think continue to speak of the gospel's power.
Yeah, I would think of putting off pride and putting on humility, meaning there is an assumption that we're making when we're looking at others and saying, you are difficult, you are challenging, you're weird, you're different. It might just be that I'm a sinner too. And I'm challenging and I have unique personality qualities. And if not that, let's just say that you don't have some of the obvious, personality traits of someone else. Well, what do you have that wasn't given to you?
Yeah.
Corinthians tells us that we ought to be humbled that if in certain ways God has made us more balanced or more whatever, that God did this for me. And for whatever reason, that other person maybe had some experiences in life or some things that weren't invested in them. And there ought to be a posture of humility that says, Lord, thank you for the things that were invested in my life. And now maybe I can love someone else out of that from a place of humility.
I think that's so important too, that humility of heart, because in our counsel in this area, it might be easy to be motivated to do these things as if other people are like projects. of like, oh, they're the hard ones to love. So to check off my to-do list of I've got to be a good Christian, like I need to have some difficult people in my life. That's not it at all. We're really to flip it and to understand how we should be in that category too. We are difficult people, and we want to just model the way that Jesus is so proactive in going after even wandering sheep, those who don't love him. He goes after them. So that's great.
Well, just to kind of go back and grab this question, perhaps we could have asked it earlier. What do we mean when we say dealing with difficult people? Who are difficult people, or what makes someone difficult? Mm-hmm. What makes us difficult?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it briefly in the very beginning. People who, I would say typically it's someone who's showing aspects of themselves that's just so different than you. Mm-hmm. If we go to the opposite, we gravitate toward people and we have friendship and connection with people who we share common interest. There's some type of common goal. There's some type of common shared belief, hobbies, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so those people, we tend to find it easier to make relational connection with. Mm-hmm. It's those people that when that's missing, it doesn't seem like there's much commonality in personality or shared interest or hobbies. That's when it can be, here's our keyword, difficult to land on some type of common ground. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I would also say, there are people in all of our lives that there's something about them, the way they speak, the tone in which they speak, the topics in which they speak, maybe it's body language, maybe it's something stands out to us because it's so different from us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Boy, I want to get into specifics. You're doing it so well.
Thank you.
But yeah. All of us know that there are people with strong personalities.
Yeah.
To the point of overbearing, loud, obnoxious, especially if it gets over into the sinful aspect. And then you've got the super shy and super quiet that you're like, do they like me?
And that's almost loud. That can be loud.
Yeah, that can be.
Way.
Gosh, they seem so rude. Like I'm just staying away from them.
Right.
I'm just, fleshing it out a little bit. And you're right. I'm just thinking of the people who love college football will tend to hang out with the people who love college football or sports in general, and the people who enjoy arts and singing and food and this type of shopping, and they all.
Or you've got you're in a, like I keep using this example. It's just a common area in church life. You're in a Sunday school class and someone goes to answer a question, and it's, in your opinion, it's off in another field that the teacher wasn't even.
Yeah.
And they went on for 7 minutes on something that just wasn't, I don't think that was the point at all. You're sitting there thinking, and so the flesh starts kicking in like odd, weird, I don't know if I can have a good conversation with this person. I wouldn't engage because of that reason. These are real issues that we're prone to think and feel, but we've already laid, another groundwork, and kind of coloring in those lenses of the gospel compels us to something that's supernatural, that is beyond what the parameters the flesh makes. Mm-hmm. Our flesh kind of draws these boundary lines, and the gospel says, no, actually, Jesus said, your testimony to the world will be your love for one another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think before we move on from that question, I don't know if you had anything to add to that, Jonathan. I think there are always differences of maturation within the body. I mean, that's just understandable. You're going to have people who are further along in the faith, and you're going to have people who maybe say things that don't make sense, or that were immature in their understanding or in the way that they handled it. So you're going to have that.
Right.
So how do I, let me ask this question. How do I want to please the Lord. I want to love difficult people well. How do I know that I'm accomplishing that? Like, what's the level? Like, what level do I need to go to? Do I need to, like, am I inviting people over to my house for dinner because they're difficult and I need to do better in this, and I need the gospel to have this evidence in my life? I mean, how do I know this is a win or this is an area I'm growing in?
Jonathan, what's the book say? What's Jamie say?
I'm not sure I've gotten to that place yet. Yeah, I'm on like chapter 3, but I think it really starts in our church with be dedicated to your BFG and D group, because those are areas where
that's a great answer.
You're going to be with people that are not exactly like you. So do all you can in those environments to ask others about their lives. Maybe have them over for dinner. You know, I don't know what it looks like. I think hospitality in general just means sharing your stuff. It doesn't mean you have to have them over for a meal, but just having that type of posture.
I like how you answer that, because those are the context in which your maturation is being fleshed out. Mm-hmm. So you've got folks at your disposal, relationships to be had that can be more of a challenge than, you're the best buddy you grew up with because you both liked fishing or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't remember the context in which I heard this, but it's been over the past week or two where hospitality was defined as entertaining strangers. And it even pressed people to be like, wait, we can't really do that in our context, man. You'll get robbed or killed. And I think the application was, no, we're not talking about just the stranger on this, transient coming through Lake Butler. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the people in your community of faith who you don't know.
Yeah.
And are you willing to, talk about D group and BFG? What we're doing is we're bringing in people that you don't know well, who are family now in Christ. And will we host those that we don't know? Will we invite them into our lives, or are we going to love self and say that'll make things difficult on self, so I'm going to keep people at a distance?
Yeah. Yeah. I also appreciate how Jonathan answered just the practical tool of asking questions. It may be a great opportunity for you to ask questions to people to get started in conversation. This allows you to not assume that why they are the way they are or why they tick the way they tick. Mm-hmm. And it allows you to have information that you can then turn around and continue a relationship, continue a conversation. This is actually something that Jonathan's really good at, actually. If you ever noticed him in a conversation, he's asking questions and then he's listening to your answers and then further ask on the answers you've given. He's great at conversation, and I think that's one of the reasons why. Appreciate you.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. It's actually something I've learned from you just in our relationship. For whatever.
So you ask questions to difficult people?
Wow. Listen, I don't care who Jonathan's talking to. He's asking questions. Yeah. It's a way to, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you are that way?
It was ingrained in me from my parents,
yeah.
Like so many great things. And my mom would talk about passing the conversational ball, which is just like, if you're just in a situation, you always have something to learn from somebody else. And then I think as I grew as a believer, I started seeing that like, there's a way that pride evidences itself in us only talking about ourselves. And so I want to be somebody who fights against my internal pride to just be like, you know what, let's try to put someone else first and let's hear about them. Because then that opens new opportunities to not only just getting to know them like facts, but then the relationship deepens, or maybe something is shared that I didn't know, and there's a new opportunity to like, I didn't know you love golf, or whatever it is. Right. And then there are kind of new ways to have a relationship.
I really, really do appreciate this about you, and I have learned from that. And it also allows you opportunity. It gives you conversational pieces to revisit.
Yeah.
When you see each other the next week,
absolutely,
you're able to follow up on whatever it is that you've discovered in that conversation. And all I'm wanting to do in all of this is just kind of flesh out really practical ways that, some conversations with people you're really a lot alike will happen very naturally. And hey, let me show you this buck or whatever. Let me show you this thing I caught or killed or this what happened in my car or whatever it may be. And those things happen just organically, and that's wonderful, and they should. But it's those learning to have conversations and learning to ask good questions and listen. Those are practical tools on how to show care and love and develop relationships with people who maybe it's just not as natural.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me take a moment just to give a caveat or two here. One is, wouldn't you say we're primarily talking about non-sinful, difficult situations?
That's where I was going to go next. Like, what if there's a situation and I think there's offense taken at
so what
the way someone said something someone said.
Yeah. The way I would handle this in this podcast would be, that's the peacemaker.
Yeah.
That's where you have to apply different principles. It's one-on-one, it's two or three. It's, do I cover an offense out of love, or am I at a place that I can't cover that? Yeah. And so we need to have that conversation. So I would say, by and large, we're talking about just typical non-sinful challenges that we run into in relationships. And then I think there are also some situations where, we haven't mentioned abuse. We haven't mentioned like family issues where, and again, it'd probably turn into sinful things like when they see the title, we're going to be talking about difficult people, they immediately start thinking about their ex-daughter-in-law, or they think about their father-in-law, or whoever that person is that's just like wrecked their life. I don't think we're really handling that as a whole either.
Right.
Right. You may have to get more counsel on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
I think what we're trying to say is that within the body of believers, we should have a type of posture that's open and warm and welcoming towards everyone. And I don't think we're saying you have to be best friends with everybody,
right,
or you should feel guilty about having a friend group. That's just naturally what, how relationships go. But I think it means that, like, if let's say your BFG was going to go do something and a few of your closest friends are there and they're going, and then you see that one person that you just don't really get along with is coming. In your heart, are you like, I'm glad they're coming? Or are you like, oh man, I thought this was going to be fun. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the type of heart posture that we're trying to address, to say, no, God places those people in our lives for a very particular reason, to reveal our own pride and to show off his glory. That easy love does not display the gospel. It's difficult love that people look at and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. That points to the Spirit's work in our lives.
I just need to read chapter 8. How can I love those people when they're wrong? That's the only part of the book I need to read. Right. Really.
Right.
Because that's the issue.
That's the real issue.
Is there a chapter on how do I know if I'm the difficult person?
Yes.
Is there really?
There is. I think it's more chapter 4. Wouldn't we be better off without them? And then the truth is that you belong together, that God has placed us into this for a real reason, and that we are usually the ones who have the real issue. Yeah. So I'd commend this book. I will link it in the show notes. You should get it and read it. And it's
now,
very
if I got 15 people talking to me for the first time Sunday, we got problems. I'll be mad at everybody.
See if it's got people waiting at the...
Yeah. There's a line.
Yeah.
Just wanted to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah. To tell me about you.
Yeah.
Well, glad this hadn't been a difficult conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the First Podcast. Until next time, for your joy and God's glory.